Welcome to episode 286 of the Working Fans Podcast, where we have a lot on our plate to discuss and really a lot from only two shows. But before we get to what's on our plate, we got to get to what's in our cup, and that's Game Up Hard Hydration. It's like your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink came together, became something so much bigger. Dave, tell them about it.
Oh yeah, we're talking about Game Up, guys. It's only 110 calories per can. It's low carb. Comes in an 8-pack with 4 great flavors: fruit punch, orange, lemon lime, and Joe's personal favorite, grape. Enjoy yourself some Game Up and enjoy us as we're about ready to kick off this week in wrestling.
And we talk about how NXT is or has become one of our favorite shows week to week. And I was able to catch it this week. There was several big things that happened. First, I think you've been talking about it for a while, the possibility of Moose coming to NXT.
Yes.
And I think you even called the Obafemi matchup. When I saw this to start the show, I was so excited about this. What are your thoughts on this? What I would call an epic matchup.
I like the fact. So here's a funny thing, kind of almost a little bit of a sidebar here. We're talking about the X Division Championship because Moose is the X Division champion. I've never been a big fan of guys Moose's size holding this title. I know the whole thing has always been it's not about weight limits, about no limits. Not a big fan of that personally because I like it as more of like a cruiserweight title. But in this situation, it's kind of cool because one, you got Moose, all right, a big super heavyweight who matches up really well with Obafemi. I mean, just look at these two next to each other here. Like, this is a great looking matchup on paper. This is box office. But then, even on NXT, they're talking about, the most prestigious championship in TNA history, the X Division champion. So it really kind of adds something to it. So I really like this. I like the fact that we're going to get Moose versus Lexis King this weekend, defending that TNA title in Cincinnati. I think that's a cool match they set up. And so just Moose being in TNA, Moose and Obafemi going to collide. I'm going to guess on one of these upcoming TNA. Maybe they're going to collide WrestleMania weekend there. Yeah, there's a lot of good possibilities here. I'm excited about this stuff.
Yeah, and if the X Division title is about no limits, does that technically make Moose a no limit soldier?
No doubt. No doubt.
You say,
Nah.
you were talking about, yeah, you know it. When you were talking about next week in Cincinnati, we have Moose versus Lexis King. That's huge. But another thing that you called, and then we saw the Hardyz are coming to NXT, and they are going to wrestle the No Quarter Catch crew. This is another matchup that I'm very excited about, and I'm glad we're seeing more of that crossover between the two shows.
Yeah, when you think about this tag team division, NXT, it's starting to really light up too. We just had Faxion beat Josh Briggs and Inamura from Noah, and I really like their no nonsense style. This no quarter catch crew too. They're also a couple of bad dudes. I really like their style, and it makes for a good matchup. But this is all going to be about the Hardy Boys, obviously, and I think it's interesting because the Hardys and Moose both going to be on NXT, both TNA wrestlers. This ain't the Vince era. I expect both TNA talents here, Moose and the Hardys, to come out victorious because I think we're setting up big matchups like we've talked in the past. I'm expecting WrestleMania weekend, the Faxion and the Hardys to collide. I'm sure I'll probably be a ladder match. Will it be multiple teams, or will it just be, one-on-one? I don't know, or 2-on-2. We'll see. But I'm excited about the prospect of the Hardys in NXT, as we've been talking about this for a while. So also awesome to see.
I like it too because it's almost, I'm getting like champion versus champion vibes at the big WrestleMania event.
Stand and deliver.
Who knows? Maybe there's a champion versus champion match at NXT. Maybe there's a champion versus champion match at TNA. That way you're not doing like this big mashup super show, but you're getting those collaborations on each show, and it makes WrestleMania weekend that much more exciting to look forward to. Now, last week, We talked about Ricky Starks coming to NXT, and there was a lot of talk about how he hadn't mentioned the name yet. Now that we saw the name, let's start off first with, before we get to how we like the name, how did you like the way they debuted it?
Yeah, well done. In the sense that they made it a big deal. What was his name? What will his name be? They kind of figured out that people online were talking about this, and then at the very end of this segment, they focus right on the contract, and we see it's Ricky Saints. Ricky Saints is fine. I like Ricky Starks. We didn't have to change it, but I like Ricky Saints in the sense that, ask me, and Joe knows this too, if I liked LA Knight when that first came out. Like, why couldn't it be Eli Drake? Ricky Saints, in my mind, is a hell of a lot better than LA Knight, but Louisiana Knight seems to be working, so good for them. This right here, though, like you see Trey Miguel in the background there. Is it Trey Miguel? Well, Wesley, I'm sorry. I've been seeing a lot of the Rascals this week. So Wesley trying to get at it with Starks. I like that. I like that we've already set up the first match, and Wesley and Starks are going to have a great match. So Ricky Saints, Ricky Starks, whatever you want to call him, call the winner, baby. He's in NXT.
I don't mind the name either, being that he's from New Orleans. You got the New Orleans Saints. It's a way to pay tribute to where he's from. And, it shows a lot about a guy when he comes in with a name and he doesn't mind changing it. Because he's been Ricky Starks everywhere else. We discovered him in NWA with it. And sometimes, getting that little change can revitalize you as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're going to skip ahead to Friday night. And this is going to be a lot about Dave explaining this segment to me, because it's been a week this week and I did not get to watch SmackDown. And I wanted to, because David messaged me that night telling me The Rock was going to be on. And, we've had this whole thought that we didn't think The Rock was going to be at WrestleMania. Dave, is that looking different after this segment?
Yeah, it's a possibility he's going to be there, but it's still kind of up in the air as far as a match goes. It's very interesting. So the segment was a bomb. It was a bomb. Now, The Rock basically had announced on social media he was coming to SmackDown. People were buzzing. The Rock was going to be there. And then in the beginning, Cody was supposed to be part of this 6-man match with Braun Strowman and Damian Priest against Jacob Fatu, Solo Sikoa, and Tama Tonga. But Nick Aldis says in the beginning, you're not going to be a part of it. And Cody's like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, it's over my head. You're not going to be part of the 6-man match. And Cody's like, what do you mean? Who do we have to talk to? And Nick Aldis says, well, you're not going to talk to anybody. You're not getting it. It's over my head if you smell what I'm cooking. And he goes, oh. And he says, and the final boss wants to talk to you tonight. So when I heard the final boss wants to talk to Cody, my first thought was, this is going to lead to Cody and The Rock having a match at Mania. But if you know, we already have this big Elimination Chamber match set for the winner to wrestle Cody at Mania. So I have some theories about that. But now let's get to the segment. Now, Rock comes out babyface mode, and he announces that they're in New Orleans, by the way, that WrestleMania is coming to New Orleans next year. Big babyface pop. And then he switches kind of to heel mode, or he's talking about basically he wants Cody to be his champion. And Cody looks confused, and he's like, I'm champion for them, the people. And he goes, no, I want you to be my champion. And they go over being in friendship. This is probably coming off sounding better than what it actually was. This segment went on for it felt like over 30 minutes. Rock rambled back and forth. It was very confusing. John and Wei Ting do a great job of breaking this down on Post Wrestling. It wasn't a good segment. In the end, basically, Rock says, take a week to decide, meet me at Elimination Chamber. Cody, it's like, you got what I want. And Cody's like, this isn't your title. He's like, no, I don't want that title. He's like, I want your soul. So I took this as this is going to be like a corporate, almost like McMahon Austin. McMahon wanted his corporate champion. And obviously Cody will say no. This will be Elimination Chamber. But Rock was talking about a press conference afterwards. He said, this doesn't have to great part about the storytelling is it doesn't have to finish in a match. And some people are like saying, like, well, all wrestling finishes in a match. What are you talking about? I do think this will finish in a match. I don't know how this is all going to play out. Maybe whoever is going to be in the Elimination Chamber, Rock is going to end up endorsing to beat Cody. And we'll see Rock play a part like that. And eventually we'll get Rock and Cody. Or my original thought is maybe night 1, Cody's going to wrestle the winner of the Elimination Chamber. We'll say John Cena. And the winner of that will meet The Rock on night 2. So I think there's a couple ways to go. So I'm kind of interested to see where this is going because it's The Rock, and I think there's a lot of big possibilities. But this segment as a whole was really just a thumbs down, a miss.
It's kind of wild that the last couple times we've seen Rock on TV, that his segments have felt like more of a miss than, knocking it out of the park, which is weird for one of the all-time best on the mic. What do you think it is about it? Do you think he's coming out there with really like no plan of what to do?
Yes.
Could it be that his genius was all in Vince's scripting?
No, I think no, I don't buy that. I think it's I think maybe you got a great team around you. It can help. But I think part of this is just poor planning. And part of this has been a poor presentation in the sense that when Rock first came back and he showed up on that Raw on Netflix, we all expected him to be part of Mania. We all expected him to be part of character. Instead, what happened was he went back to Dwayne Johnson, PR guy. And nobody really liked that. And that's fine. I didn't like it either. And we weren't really expecting that. So there would have been a nicer way to transition from that. But we didn't get that. I just took it like, okay, this guy's not going to be at Mania. Then he went on to NXT and just kind of went out there and started talking and then really had nothing planned. But I'm like, all right, well, that was kind of weird, but that's NXT, and he's not really a part of NXT. But this was almost like we got no plan, but we kind of want you there, and we're going to do something with you, but we don't know what, and you need to be a heel, but you need to come out as a babyface first to get this crowd excited about Louisiana. It was very confusing, and I would say, these guys will adapt. If you look at The Rock and his career and the people they put behind him, they'll adapt to a situation. If you remember last year at Mania, The Rock nobody wanted The Rock there. They wanted Cody. They went with Cody. Cody ended up being the champion. The Rock was a part of it. It made for a pretty good program. They'll adapt, but right now, this has just been a miss.
And Dave, last week we talked about the fact that Legends and Future Greats was going to be debuting that night. Mm-hmm. Did you get to watch episode 1?
I did not. I actually thought I had it recorded on my DVR. I did it, so I'm going to try to watch 2 episodes this week.
All right, yeah. I did not get to check it out either. I had planned to because I was excited about it. Let's check the DVR real quick. And if you go into the Working Fans portion of the DVR, it's there.
All right, cool. Yeah, I just set something up not too long ago. So either way, we should have something to watch. So
yeah, I'm excited to watch it.
I watched Rivals. They had Undertaker and Austin as a rival, and they had like WWE's greatest moments. I looked at Raw in the 90s. They were okay. Nothing I had to see. But Legends and Future Greats is obviously going to be a different type show. So I'm curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah, like I said, I'm really not excited about the reality TV aspect of it. But I believe it was you that showed me a picture of Jeremy Borash sitting at a table,
right?
Possibly calling action. So
Vic Joseph, yeah.
Getting to see. Maybe it'll be interesting to see the development of them training with these people to getting into the ring.
Because these are guys from the independent world too, and stuff. A lot of them too. So there's a lot of guys and girls who can wrestle here, and I think it's also going to be mixed in with some other talent. So it'll be interesting. And we got coaches that are like Undertaker and Bully Ray, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, man, I like it. And you were talking about Thursday night that we had a couple debuts in TNA.
Yes.
And It's wild that you mentioned Elijah because I thought he had been going around with Vincent and Dutch as part of that group in ROH, but he made an appearance in TNA. Did you get to watch this episode?
I did. This was cool. It starts off with the team we'll be talking about in the next segment who also debuted. And he basically came to the aid of Joe Hendry, and it set up a main event later in the program. But like, I thought for sure he was going to maybe turn on Joe Hendry, and maybe that'll happen at some point. But instead, we got these two who very similar gimmick, right? They love to play the guitar. They like to do the little concerts. And here they are, both in TNA right now. And this has got to be really good for Elijah, the former Elias, because, you know, Joe Hendry is a hot commodity right now. And TNA has a good deal of buzz, and they have the relationship with WWE. I think this is definitely the best move he could make.
Yeah, 100%. And really kind of refreshing a character that I think did well in WWE for a little bit and then severely fell off. And you talked about the other team that made their debut. They were incredibly underused in WWE just based on where they are in wrestling history with their family. Yeah. How did the Colognes come out, and how did they play into the show?
They basically interrupted Joe Hendry's concert, and it ended up with them saying, well, why don't we, Henry did a little song about them, making fun of them, and basically the Colognes said, well, why don't we have a viral moment, and why don't we break that guitar over your head and break your neck? And they were coming down, and then that's when Elijah came down to their aid, and then Santino Marella came out and made that the main event for the live TNA episode, and Elijah and Joe Hendry walk out with the win. But, it's cool to see these different talents getting a shot in TNA. That's one thing I've always liked about TNA. Just because you might have flopped in WWE or somewhere else doesn't mean you won't get a chance there. They are pretty good about giving people chances a lot of times, at least in the last few years. And it's interesting just to see TNA these days, because these live episodes have been something I've made it a point to watch too, because I think it's right. This one was in Orlando as well. And, I think Cora Jade came down on this episode at one point and attacked Masa Slamovich, because Masa Slamovich was getting into it with Tessa Blanchard, who was supposed to wrestle for the first time in years on TNA Impact, but she ended up not going out there because she said the doctor wouldn't check on her when the doctor was checking on Zia Lee, who got misted in the eyes by Rosemary earlier. And she said, well, I'm a priority. And she's not going to treat me like a priority. I'm not going to wrestle. So she refuses to wrestle. Masha Slamovich comes out and says, I'll wrestle. And she puts on a show. And then she's going back and forth with Tessa. And here comes Cora Jade. So you had Cora Jade on the show attacking Masha. You had the Colognes debuting in the main event. You had the former Elijah there. And it's just great to see all this talent, whether it's NXT or elsewhere, coming into TNA.
Yeah, Cora Jade's been on, I believe, a few of their episodes. I think she was at a pay-per-view as well. So It's, like you said, it's great to see them. And I think it's part of the reason why we hold out so much hope for AEW as well, because when you have these other companies that are out there, you get these people that might have been underused in WWE, but you get to see them flourish elsewhere. The Colognes, I think a highly underrated team when they were in WWE. And we're going to go from highly underrated to, I don't even know what the transition is on that, because you put up this short this week. And I really enjoyed it, because you're thinking better faction, Hart Foundation or Bloodline. And it's great because they're both, family factions as well. So that adds to it. I just want to explain, the image on the right is one of the special editions of the new WWE game coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love the design on it. But
yeah, no, it's cool. I like it. Now, I just want to say,
putting Hart Foundation up against Bloodline. Who do you got?
So interesting enough. So I want to talk about this a little bit, because when I talk about Hart Foundation too, especially as the faction, Jim and Brett are a great tag team, but when I think of the faction, I'm thinking not only of Brett and Anvil, you got Owen Hart, you got Davey Boy Smith, and you had Brian Pillman too. Don't forget. And these guys had such great heat around 97, right before the Montreal Screwjob at the end of the year. Like, the Hart Foundation was just on fire. Like, they were so hated in the U.S., but so loved everywhere. It was such a unique time. Look at Brett. What one of the all-time greats, right? Davey Boy Smith, a great tag wrestler and a great singles wrestler. Owen Hart, career and life cut too short. He's recognized as one of the all-time greats. Pillman, the loose cannon. Someone mentioned to me the other day online how Pillman, in a lot of ways, may have started the Attitude Era. And I thought that was an interesting take, right? But that loose cannon character. All did great things, and you could argue is the better faction. But for me, when I look at Roman Reigns and what he's done, it's incredible. And I don't think anybody, even Brett, as much as I love him, is touching the success of Roman. The thing is, though, we're talking about as a faction, right, what they've accomplished. And I think the Bloodline has really changed the game for wrestling as a whole right now. They've ushered in this new era, and the successful era we're seeing in wrestling would not be where we're at if it wasn't for the Bloodline. And Jey Uso. Jey Uso is on the verge of being one of the biggest stars in the company. He's about to headline a WrestleMania, possibly win his first world title against Gunther. And you taking that with Roman already, and then who knows where Jacob Fatu is going to be. Right now, I'm going to give the edge to the Bloodline, but in a few years, like, it might not even be close. And I love the Hart Foundation, but this Bloodline is, we might be feeling the success of this for a long, long time.
Yeah, I wanted to find a picture with, a more full version of the Hart Foundation, but there were so many of them there that you couldn't get it where you'd get them all in a nice picture. But I kind of have to side with you on Bloodline as well, because Hart Foundation was great, but it's not like the Hart Foundation was a part of like a game-changing era. And right. I think that's what we're really seeing with the Bloodline now. It's great that it's both family-oriented and like really respected families in wrestling history. I mean, with the Hart Foundation, that was more family through marriage. Obviously, I mean, the joke with the Samoans is always that they're all related. But here, they are a bloodline. They are a family. And it's great to see them be a part of wrestling as it is now. And if you're happy, if you're excited with the Bloodline being a part of wrestling, imagine how you're going to feel when Game Up Hard Hydration is a part of wrestling.
If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com or at your nearest liquor store.
Author Ray Lopez presents Lockup, Professional Wrestling in Our World. Lockup dives headfirst into the colorful world of professional wrestling. Explore the iconic characters, careers, matches, history, and families, and delve into the bizarre and fascinating entwining of professional wrestling and film, television, football, politics, gender, and race. Pre-orders are available now on Amazon.com or at MascotBooks.com. This is the perfect gift for the wrestling fan in your life. Pick up a copy today on Amazon.com or at MascotBooks.com.
Hey fans, it's the man they call Dave with producer Joe, and you probably know us as the commentary team for New Heights Pro Wrestling, but when we're not doing that, we got a podcast.
That is the Working Fans Podcast, where we talk pro wrestling, comedy, MMA, and so much more.
And tell them about that signature segment.
Oh, you talk about the 531?
You know I am.
That is a homegrown creation that has been our namesake. And if you want to know our namesake, we got Chevy, AJ Strange Brew, as well as the two of us.
And why don't you go to our channel, like, subscribe, show us some love.
Rate, review, all of it.
All you goddamn wrestling fans out there, listen, old black Hart has got a book. It's called Wrestle Black Hart. It's got some dadgum good stories in there about some dadgum good wrestlers.
Read stories of Dusty Rhodes, Devon Eric, Scott Casey, Sergeant Slaughter, Roddy Piper, Mr. Fuji, Ron Bass, Bruiser Brody, Mike Davis, The Grappler, and many others.
And I guarantee you one thing. That it'll be the best dadgum read you've had in a long, long time.
Get your book today at Russellville.com or on Amazon. Russellville, it's where wrestling lives.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville, it's where wrestling lives.